Look, come into the kitchen if you can take the heat. I got some brews for you. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Battlefield. Siege Ryan here. We have another video for you today. It's a little bit different. I did this for the last set, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they have some pretty good cards that released for Pauper and for other formats. So today, I really wanted to take you through some of the decks that I've brewed that I'm really keen to play. Yes, there are a couple Pauper decks, but also some standard decks. So if you're keen to look at the Pauper decks, I'll show them after these standard decks. Otherwise, let's just go for the ride and have a bit of a look. If you do enjoy these videos, please feel free to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel a fair bit. And you can use code word Siege Ryan for mana traders to get a little bit of money off after a couple months to fuel your magic urge. Anyway, let's get to business. So this first one is standard. This is also heroic. I'm calling it heroic because heroic is one of my favorite archetypes ever. I played it to death when we were playing Pioneer way back in the day when Red White Heroic was really good. Simon Nielsen took that to a very good start. So I'm calling it heroic because I just have to. So essentially it's the improved version of heroic is repartee, I think it's called. So whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, it triggers like an ability of like a creature or a permanent. So anyway, I'm running an Orzhov build. Some other creators have done similar builds, but I guess I've played a lot of heroic and you have to be really careful with how your pips are because everything's 1 or 2 mana. So you go into the 3 or 4 very rarely, and it has to be a very good card if you're doing that. So you're very low to the ground. And because of that, the pips are cooked, essentially. So really, I think the trap for these kinds of decks is people want to go into 3-drops. And the issue with that is, you'll want to really finish the game early, have some really good threats, and finish by turn 4, turn 5 usually. And that's pretty good in standard. So the core of the deck, essentially, and similar to any other heroic deck, is we have the 1-drop, so Lecturing Scorn Mage is the key one. So it's a 1-mana card. It says whenever you target a creature, it gets +1/+1. So there's not just pumps, but also stuff like Erode, which is like the new Path to Exile. You can run like Requiting Hex or something like that to do the same thing. But really, we're getting into this really cooked 2-drop slot. So we're running 16 creatures, which is a good amount. We're running this Informed Inkwright. This is another good card. So this Informed Inkwright, essentially, as it says here, is when you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, you get a 1/1 white and black Inkling. So we have a young Pyromancer that's making flying tokens. So you think about cards like Dig Site Inventory, where it's essentially Homestead Courage, just with a different name. You can double that into any other creature and you're building your own Lingering Souls, essentially, which is like pretty cracked, really. Now, probably what's really different about this deck is, yes, we got this repartee card, which is the Menace, which gets a +1/+1 counter, and when it dies, if it had counters on it, you can move it to something else. So we can push all our counters into something like this, and then when it dies, we move it onto like an Inkling token or something like that to finish the job off, which is really good. So normally with heroic, the issue is you're targeting your creatures and then they just blow you out by, playing a removal spell in response to something like that if you don't have a protection spell, which we are running. But the other issue, I guess the benefit of this now is that we can target like a crappy token and then they don't really want to remove that. So our spell will resolve, but then we have our big creatures that actually do pretty well. This is probably the key difference that we're running in a lot of other decks, is we're running Quillblade Laureate. So this card is very similar to Illuminator Virtuoso. So this card comes in with double strike. It comes in prepared, and the prepared spell gives something +1/+0 in double strike as well. So that card is pretty cooked already. It comes in with extra value. So this is what it kind of, I think, is based off anyway from Streets of Compania. So this is double strike, but it connives. In this card, if you play that on turn 2 and opponents did not respect it, you could win the next turn with it. It was an easy turn 3 win. So the fact that you can put stuff into this card if you want to, and then you can move across or give something else double strike, like say, hey, this Menace creature, and really go to town, it's pretty good. And also just adds to the whole repartee thing anyway. I think this can get a little bit scarier than it leads on to, essentially. Now, another key thing that I've changed about this deck, which probably other people aren't doing as much, is there is like a pseudo counters archetype here. So we have access to Honor, which is pretty good. So this gives +1/+1 counters and draw a card. And also Dual Sun Technique. So this says target creature you control gains double strike. If it has a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. So we have these spells that allow you to put a counter on, give double strike, and draw cards, which is exactly what you want in this deck. So Dig Site Inventory, Honor, Dual Sun Technique. When you're playing these heroic spells, you want them to kind of replace themselves so you don't lose your threats or your gas over time. Now, what's handy is Silver Quill Charm is also a way to give counters. So we're running 4. It's a way to remove creatures, and it's also a little bit of reach if we need it as well. So it's actually quite a good spell, something you can do at the end step as well, adding counters onto the Scolding Administrator and just go to town from there. You'll notice as well that the Lecturing Scorn Mage and the Scolding Administrator, they're getting counters anyway. So the Dual Stun technique can a lot of the time just replace itself, which is good. I am running some Crumb and Get It's. I love the pun with this card, but I was running this card anyway back in the day, just giving you a way to do like a pseudo giant growth, but also if you need to, give it indestructible. The amount of times I've destroyed people with the Illuminated Virtuoso, and then playing some, Homestead Courages on it, and then they try to remove it, then we play Crumb and Get It onto it, and then we give it indestructible. The food doesn't really matter. They can gain 3 life, but we're coming in with Double Strike anyway. You could remove this for something else, but it's hard to know what that is right now. Over here, we're running 3 roads. I think we don't want to run the full 4 because we've got some Silver Cool Charms as well. And I'm just running Enter the Avatar State. The fact that we can give something Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink, and Hexproof is pretty cooked. So we have some indestructible stuff, and then also we have a way just to either we can gain life, we can give something evasion, and really just cook them. If we get away where we can just put a bunch of counters on this, and then Avatar State this, and just send it over in the air, we can finish the game very quickly. So this is essentially this first deck. This next deck is a little crowd favorite, I think, as well. Mono White Aggro. I played Mono White Aggro recently when I played through some standard leagues, and honestly, Mono White Aggro is the way I got my regional championships qualifier. So I was able to top 8 and do pretty well with a Mono White list. This is a big, big difference to what I was originally running. If you were following that, I do have a league in my past catalog if you want to look at that. But essentially, Strixhaven and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set has really given us some core cards. So I just want to talk about them quickly. So we are just running some key lands here as well, like we were running before, some Soulstone Sanctuaries and Abandoned Temples. We can probably just match the lands a little bit. We probably only want like 2 Soulstone Sanctuaries. I probably even drop like 1 Abandoned Air Temple because we really want to not mess up our mana and be able to play Plains on turn 1. Anyway, so essentially, the best 1-drops in the deck was Novice Inspector. But now that we have access to this sneak mechanic, we actually want to be able to drop as many 1-drops down as possible and flood the board wide and play an early Leonardo. Sneak works really well because A, it removes the creature from play. So Suki allows us to get an ally when a creature or permanent leaves the battlefield, which is what Sneak does. But then we get more stuff in our hand. So when that happens, Kinscar Sentry can actually play more stuff onto the battlefield for us and get that aggro going. So everything's kind of the same besides that, and these are things that we all kind of want to pick up as well anyway. So Cheeky House Mouse is a way to give something +1/+1 and also give it a bit more evasion, essentially, depending on what the board state is. So yeah, very good to pick up. This is Elite Interceptor, which is also pretty good with Leonardo and just tapping down key blockers. So being able to play this, prepare it, tap down a creature, draw a card, you attack with it, Leonardo, return it, and just keep going to town with that. This Leonardo, Leader in Blue, I haven't tried yet, but it's a pretty good card when you look at it. I'm only running 2 because it's legendary, but the fact that it has Sneak, and when it sneaks, it gives everything +2/+0. So we have this really cool Lord effect when we get into the pseudo mid-range late game. Is pretty cool, if you ask me, and also another way where you're just picking up a creature and doing some other shenanigans. You can also Sneak, pick up a Leonardo, chuck on something else. Lightstorm Inquisitor is another great card. It's got Vigilance, so I'm not running any of the web-slinging cards. I did want to run Arachne, but I think it's a little bit too hard with this Vigilance creature. But the fact that we can play this, replay it, do some more shenanigans, see what's going on in that hand, and just disrupt them a little bit can actually go pretty far. Novice Inspector is probably the best 1-drop because we can just draw cards off it. And you probably notice here that I'm just running 2 Seam Rips. I just find that we're running just a fantastic card in the form of Path to Exile, basically, that we don't need to run as many Seam Rips now. So that's quite nice. We've got a really good spell for removal and just a little bit of bits and bobs to handle anything else. I am trying to practice Offense. I think it's pretty good. You still want to play Suki. Suki's still better. You want to play that on turn 3 as you curve out. But practice Defense just by being able to put counters on everything. And then also, you can choose between, so it says target creature gains your choice of double strike or lifelink is also a pretty cracked effect as well. So if we're able to do some shenanigans where we have lots of mana, we might be able to play it once and then play it again with flashback, give 2 cards double strike, or we just give 2 things lifelink to get through burn. Or we can do a way where we play something, give something double strike like Leonardo, Erode, or use something else like the Elite Interceptor, give something unblockable, pseudo unblockable anyway, tap down a creature and just get in. So I feel like now the White Weenie deck has a lot more versatility and flexibility and multiple ways to Anthem as well, which I really like in a White Weenie deck. When I played this in a top 8, when I got to a top 8 with this at an RCQ, I was really relying on Suki and the spaceship that Honor of the Pure was the card that we were playing to get the other Honor of the Pure effect. But now I think just with Leonardo and all these sneak effects and all this extra disruption, this actually could be a real contender. So I think watch this space. I guess things you could flex around is probably the 2-drops if you want to. I'm a big fan of Spectacular Spider-Man just to keep the board pretty safe. But yeah, I'm very happy with how this is looking currently. All right, over to Pauper. So I can't help myself. We're back into heroic territory. Strixhaven has helped us a fair bit. So this feels kind of crazy, but people will kind of think about, oh, like Homestead Courage is kind of like good. But, you know, the new Homestead Courage is a card that could see play. But really with Heroic and how pips work, it is very intensive. I'm only still running 1 Homestead Courage in this build of Heroic. But what I really want to try is Elite Interceptor. So I feel like this deck needs a little bit of meat and ways to still target. So I've really loved Mardu Devotee, and you've seen it in the channel a fair bit if you follow these kinds of decks, is that the Elite Interceptor is now another good 1-drop, because we want to lead with the 1-drop and then pick up the planes on turn 2 to play something like Boros Garrison. But the Elite Interceptor is a way to also just target your Chrome Crusader and draw a card, which is good. So this feels like aggro, but really this deck actually wants to win on like turn 5, essentially. And it has some good resilience in it. But playing this and then following up with like, say, a Seeker of the Way, and you can tap down one of their creatures. Essentially, this is just a way to tap down like a Crystal, so you can just get in with all your clowns. And then they can block with their tokens or whatever, but it means we're not losing any of our key creatures. Or, you know, you're tapping down a Terror or a Gurmag Angler or something like that. That's probably the key thing that I've changed with this deck. I'm quite actually happy to try this. It just seems very good. Over to the sideboard, I am actually trying some of these Mask of Law and Grace. So this is Pro Black and Red, and then also the Shield of Duty and Reason. So the reason I'm going forward with this, and it feels crazy, I know, but really this is a core white deck. We're just running it for the Chrome Crusader, and we want to be doing the Guiding Voice from the Chrome Crusader to go get How to Start a Riot. But when you actually play against like Jund Wildfire or something like that, what you actually want to do is just side out your Ancestral Angers and then just side in your Law and Graces. So when the time is right, then you can equip it to like a Chrome Crusader, and you can see here everything else is white. Everything else is white. It's just the How to Start a Riot, which you just have to target another creature, which is a little bit sad, but I think that's still fine anyway. Or you can just, you know, do the game plan of Mask of Law and Grace and then just put it on like a gigantic 10th District Legionnaire, or put it on a Seeker of the Way and just ham it up really high and just swing in for massive amounts of damage. So that's essentially this update for this deck. We may even want to swap over a Homestead Courage for Elite Interceptor. Probably makes the deck a little bit slower. Tell me what you think about this one. All right, so this is 2 in a row here, okay? So this is interesting. So we played Abzan Solstices on the channel before. I really do like it, but now we have this change of the Pest Mascot. So before, we were running the Marauding Blight Priest. So that's the one that where you gain life, they lose life. I think that card was kind of trash a little bit. It's just a 3-mana 3/2. It doesn't do a lot. Really, I think how we just soup up this version of the deck is we cut that card and we just go full in the package of we got the Blood Researcher, and now we got the better Blood Researcher in the Pest Mascot. So now we got Trample on top of this bad boy, and it's a slightly better stat as well. So there's not much to change with this deck other than that. I have kind of played around a little bit with these creatures a little bit here and there. But yeah, really we're just keeping the main ones. Lunark Veteran, Soul's Attendant, Soul Warden. You kind of want to keep white, I think, right now. It's pretty easy to play with all the Star Wars and stuff like that. And, you know, the Dryades and the Caretakers. But now we just have 8. We just have 2 copies of the card that we want to kind of just get in with. I think we're pretty happy with that. We did look at some other stuff that we could try with, you know, that we could lead the Stampede, some Anthem effects for these random dinky creatures. But I think we're fine with how it is now, essentially. So let me know what you think about Abzan Solstices. Now, this one is the version I was absolutely cooking with. So this is Golgari. Now, Golgari Solstices is probably a little bit of a work in progress. The issue with green-black is there's not as many life gain effects. So we're still running a high creature count, but we're kind of leaning more on... So yeah, the high creature count means we're playing more the land grants. And we're still running Winding Ways and Lead the Stampedes. But I guess now we have a bit of a different curve. It goes... It's a lot nicer of a curve. It goes 20, 14 into 16. And we're running just the one Haunted Mire as well. But we are essentially going with still the fun stuff here, but we kind of have to rely a lot more on Essence Warden. But I guess what we have here is over here, this Bogwater Lumerate. So this is another creature. This is whenever this creature or another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. So just to supplement the reduction of life gain here, we are running 2 Trespasser's Curse. It does require your opponent to play a creature-based deck, but it's still a very good card, I believe, anyway. So that's kind of this version of it. I guess in terms of the difference between Abzan Solstices is that we're running the 4 Pest Mascot, the 4 Blood Researcher, but we're running 4 Marauding Blight Priest as well, just because we don't have that big of a oomph, and I think we're just more of a curve into. I was looking at this deck and potentially running stuff like Elves of Deep Shadow, standard cards like Elvish Mystic, Lana Royals, just to push into, we can go a nice curve into the Pest Mascot, but I feel like that's still something that we don't really want. We want to set up the live game first and then play the Pest Mascot in the Marauding Blight Priest and whatnot. So this is this version of the deck. Let me know what you think about it. And last but not least, this is Boros Bully with Spirit Mascot. I have been thinking about this deck a fair bit. I'm very keen to play this deck, so the very lucky last. Now, this deck was pretty good before. I've played it at my locals, I've played it online. Thrilling Discovery is a good card. Boros has also run the Mock Site, which also discards, so you can play cards like Sneaky Snacker. I think now, what I like about this deck is it has a lot more enablement. So we're running 4 Faithless Looting, and instead of running 4 Thrilling Discovery, because now it's the worst version of a card, running 4 Pursue the Past and 2 Thrilling Discovery. I was playing around the last 2 slots of this kind of deck, and I feel really you need to run 10 discard effects, draw and discard effects, to really get something out of Sneaky Snacker. Because even the amount of times I play with Mock Site, I've had trouble with really firing off with the Sneaky Snacker and getting enough value off of that. I needed to draw a lot of bounce effects to really get it to work. So I think having 10 is the core amount, and the fact that we can discard, we can flash these back now in the late game to just machine gun these Sneaky Snackers is going to be good. I am taking a very, very interesting approach though. Because of Spirit Mascot, we're leaning more into stuff returning from the graveyard. So we're running stuff like Sacred Cat, Lunarch Veterans, things that we can just disturb and bring back. And then, so obviously Spirit Mascot is a big creature that can just whack in, and we have ways to kind of clear the board with Lightning Bolt and Thraben Charm. But we do really want to lead into all these other flashback cards as well. So it's a very cool deck, don't get me wrong, and most things come back from the graveyard, but we have to be very mindful that Spirit Mascot is probably not the main way we're winning this game. We are doing lots of value, keeping the removal in our hand in Spirit Mascots, and then we're disturbing these or rebuffing these creatures, and then keeping up stuff like Prismatic Strands. And then the idea is we just want to rally the presence with lots of creatures like Battle Screech, Sneaky Snackers, and just get them with lots of damage and finish them off with bolts. That's probably the core part of this deck. I'm very keen to try this just because I want something that I actually feel like this is a lot more consistent than when I've played it in the past with Bully. I found that sometimes just run out of gas, you go Thrilling Discovery, and that's that. But the fact that we now have 2 cards that can do a flashback, and we can just run a little bit of a supplementary version, and they're both gain life as well, which is pretty huge if you ask me, because it can be a little bit slow going this deck if you're not drawing the right part of the cards. I have thought, because we're running Sacred Cat, and just lots of flyers, you could almost run a Gates package, which seems kind of cooked. But I guess the thing if you're mindful of is this is a red-white card. A lot of them are red-white pips. So you probably want to just keep into this kind of style with, 19 lands. That's why running 4 Boros Garrison, and just running a bunch of landscapes as well, just to kind of get the basics out as you need. The sideboard, I think I've done pretty stock standard here, just the extra Prismatic Strands. I do like rallies, trying to get around stuff like End the Festivities, because we're running lots of Battle Screeches and Sneaky Snackers and what have you. And yeah, 4 Dust to Dust is pretty crucial. We want something for the quick aggro decks as well. Just 4 Red Blast and 2 more removal spells, which I think is quite good with this version of the deck. So that's essentially all the decks that I have brewed. 6 very cool decks, don't get me wrong. So let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, I'm definitely keen to try these out.